Let's talk about a team that is not a team that I am looking to back, and I might be looking to fade, and that is the Houston Texans. And listen, before I say this, it has nothing to do with what I think the Texans are necessarily doing as a franchise. I actually think they played this perfectly, Stephen. They didn't like any of the quarterbacks in the draft last season. They sat back. They lost some games. They were able to use some draft picks to try to bolster the roster in other places. And they're like, hey, look, there's 7 or 8 first round draft quality quarterbacks in next year's draft. So we'll just start Davis Mills this year. So be it. We're not going to go out and get anybody that's any good. We'll lose our games again this year, but at least we can get our franchise quarterback in the draft next season. I got to admit, I think that's probably the way to go if you're the Texans team, right? I mean, you're not going to win anytime soon anyway. If you hated the quarterbacks last draft, just roll Davis Mills out there this year. Take your lumps. Get one of the top picks in this year's draft. And as I mentioned, there's 2 at the top that we know are going to be super highly regarded. There are another 5 or 6 that also have at least first-round grades by various draftniks out there. So you're going to have your pick of the litter that you can have that building block. I mean, listen, remember, it's not too long ago that the Cincinnati Bengals were the laughingstock as well of the NFL. They went out, they got their building block in Joe Burrow and were able to ascend really rapidly here. I'm not saying any of these quarterbacks in this draft are going to be Joe Burrow. That's not what I'm saying. But you at least got to take your shot. You at least got to fire at it. And, look, again, they're going to lose a lot of games this year, but I don't really mind the strategy.
Let's not forget that they were a lot more competitive towards the end of last season than they were for most of the beginning of the season, too. It's almost like a light started to come on for Davis Mills. I think that they have talent at the receiver position with Brandon Cooks and also potentially an athletic freak and Nico Collins to be their wide receiver, too. I like what they have to give Davis Mills out there. Brevin Jordan's an athletic tight end as well. And they went out and quietly got Marlon Mack in the backfield, who before his injury was a very solid contributor for the Indianapolis Colts. So this is a team that beat the pants off the Jaguars in Week 15, then went out and beat the pants off of the Chargers by more than 1 score in Week 16, and was competitive, lost by 3 to the Titans in Week 18. So Davis Mills, he's not going to blow you away statistically. From week 12 on, he was still 18th in EPA and CPOE composite. So that's EPA and completion percentage over expectation. But he was 17th in adjusted EPA per play. In terms of his completion percentage over expectation, it was close to 0. So again, just nothing really blowing you away, but also not bottom of the barrel in that realm of the Zach Wilson, Carson Wentz situation. So I think he has the ability to maybe be a league average quarterback. And that's a lot more than what we thought he would be at the start of last year when they were just losing games and getting their pants beat off of them 40-0 to the Bills in week 4. So I think like Jacksonville, this can be a competitive team. And maybe if the number gets out of control week to week, maybe we're taking shots on them, Matt.
Yeah, Lovie Smith takes over as head coach. Pep Hamilton is going to be your offensive coordinator. Smith's going to call the defensive play, so he doesn't have a defensive coordinator per se on staff. So Smith and Hamilton handling the play calling duties there on either side of the ball. They bring in edge rusher Jerry Hughes. They bring in edge rusher Mario Addison. They brought in right guard A.J. Cann. They brought in corner Steven Nelson. They brought in Marlon Mack, as you mentioned, a safety M.J. Stewart. They brought in another edge rusher in Rasheem Green. They brought in Agbania Korankwo at defensive line. So they were able to acquire some guys in the offseason. Now, none of those names are really blowing your skirt up or anything, but I mean, they're all just solid, they're solid, multiple year NFL pros. And so, it's not like they're putting a bunch of trash guys out there. As we know, the big story in the offseason, they moved Deshaun Watson, traded him to the Browns. They, Tyrod Taylor left town as well. He was with the Giants. Now Terrence Mitchell has gone to Buffalo. So listen, anytime you lose Deshaun Watson and Terrence Mitchell, it's not great for your team overall. Justin Reed also gone at safety, DeMarcus Walker at edge. So there were some fairly significant losses here. But again, I don't think this team is really looking to try and win this year anyway. So I don't think they're too worried about it. They had 2 first-round, 2 second-round picks. They take Derek Stingley Jr. With their number 1 overall pick in the first round. With their second pick in the first round, they take an offensive guard in Kenyon Green. So you build on the defensive side. It's a passing league. You get a guy that you think can be a lockdown corner. Then you come back and you start to get an offensive line for whoever's going to end up being your quarterback next year. In the second round, they took Jalen Petrie with a safety, and then they took John Mechie at wide receiver in the second round as well. Now, we know that he might not play for a while there for the Texans, but as we just mentioned, they're not looking to win this year as it is. Anyway, they take linebacker Christian Harris in the third round with the draft, so they did try to build through the draft as well. The problem here, Stephen, they have the 5th toughest schedule in the NFL, and when you have a team that doesn't have a ton of talent to begin with and you have the 5th toughest schedule in the NFL, that's where you find yourself as a big-time dog to just about everything. The Texans are 300 to 1 to win the Super Bowl, and they are 30 to 1 just to win the division. If that tells you anything about the uphill battle that this team is going to face, their win total sitting way, way, way down low, about 5.5, depending on where you look with this squad. Hard for me to find a way to back them. You know, I mean, it's when everybody is so down on a team, sometimes I look and I was like, certainly there's something that fell through the crack here. Certainly there's something I can look at to do. But, you know, you look at PFF and the way they view this team heading into the season, 22nd rated offensive line, 30th ranked pass catchers, 30th ranked defensive line, 32nd rated secondary. So, I mean, they are in the bottom 3 in every single unit, you know, outside of offensive line, where they're still in the bottom third of the league. And so it's just very hard for me to do anything other than say positive words that I believe that they're building for the future and they're at least going about it the right way.
Yeah, would it have shocked you if I told you that Davis Mills had more 300-yard passing games than any other rookie quarterback last year? With all those first-round quarterbacks that went last year, that surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And then the offensive line, Titus Howard allowed the lowest pressure rate of all left tackles. Laramie Tunsil returns from injury. Kenyon Green is there as well for some depth. So I think the offensive line should at least give Davis Mills a chance this year. And like I said, I like their wide receivers. So I think they will be competitive from the start this year compared to what they were last year. But as far as their win total, I mean, we're looking at in the market right now, you have to pay minus 215 for over 3.5. And if you want 4.5, you can still find a plus number. But if you look at their schedule, outside of games against Chicago, 2 against Jacksonville, Washington, I guess you could throw the Giants in there. That's about it. The rest of the schedule is against teams that have win totals that project them to be over 500. So that's only 5 out of those 17 games against teams with win totals projected under 500. So hard to bet. Hard to be bullish on over 4.5 on the Texans at this point. Maybe we get a better number if they start 0-2 against the Colts and the Broncos.
Yeah, I was going to say just to throw it out there. We mentioned that Football Outsiders, run simulations of the season. They run 1 million different sims, and in those million sims, the mean projection for wins for this Texans team was over 7, Stephen. So just a weird, was over 7 for this squad. I thought was a little bit weird.
I mean, I like the offense. I do like the offensive pieces. I think it's arguably a middle of the road average talent on offense, with Davis Mills being close to average as well. So I understand that side of it. I'm not sure the defense is there.
I think you're right though. Maybe it's a team that we look at in season and say, okay, is this team playing better than maybe their record indicates? And, are there some games that they could steal as we get into the second half of the season? Because remember, they play the Giants, they play Washington. Maybe Miami does not take that step forward that everybody's thinking that they're going to. They still have a game with Jacksonville in the second half of the schedule. So there are winnable games on the schedule out there. So like you said, maybe if they start off a little bit rough, trying to adjust here to Davis Mills' life and Pep Hamilton's calling the plays life and everything like that. If this thing dips to whatever, like you said, maybe it dips to a 3 as a win total, maybe then that's the way that you play this Houston Texans team.
Week 1, 8-point home dog against Indianapolis. That's the kind of, like, for them to just cover a touchdown each week is something that we'll have to consider as we go here, because when they were a dumpster fire, we were seeing like 17-point spreads on this team as a home dog, and they weren't able to cover it. But I don't think I think if we start seeing those double-digit numbers again on the Texans, we have to consider it here if they're healthy. A lot of those spreads we saw last year with Houston is because they were decimated by injury by halfway through the season. I mean, they were just obliterated by injury a season ago, especially on the offensive line, which didn't give Davis Mills a chance really until the end of the season. So, I think like the Jaguars, this is a potentially valuable team as big underdogs in games.